We are back with another Playful Humans podcast, and we have at least one Playful Human here. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and you can find us at playfulhumans.com. We are also joined this week by Little Ginger, a co-founder of Culture Puppets. You can find them at culturepuppets.com. Little Ginger could do a founder's roast for your company party, an employee award ceremony. They have Puppets as a Service, a past service that you can check out for new hire, L&D. You want to make some online courses? Check out culturepuppets.com. Here we go. Welcome to the Playful Humans podcast. Here we like to start with the joke of the week. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by the aquarium. I went to the aquarium this past weekend, but I didn't stay long. There was just something fishy about that place, Little Ginger.
Good one.
All
Love
right.
it.
Here's the official joke of the week. What do you call a sheep that can sing and dance? Lady Baba. All right.
Bah.
Do you have a joke you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Hello, good to be here, Little Ginger. I am a blue puppet with orange hair, for those of you listening from not Screenland. Yes, this is a joke I tell my children. What do you call an elf who can spin poop into gold?
Ooh, I don't know.
Rumpelstiltskin.
All right. That'll get us started in the right mood. So, Little Ginger, you are co-founder of Culture Puppets. So, why did you start this company, and what exactly is a Culture Puppet?
So, I'm a hand puppet with these rods to control my hands, and there's my co-founder's hand is in me right around this area here. He's in the studio. He'll be talking a little bit later on, but I'm kind of the face of Culture Puppets, so I do a lot of the face work.
That was a little literal. I was thinking metaphorically, what do Culture Puppets do?
Right. So, a lot of businesses are always trying to improve their culture. And also teams are remote now and hybrid, and it can be hard to keep camaraderie and keep people connected and keep people's attention spans during meetings. You know what I mean? Like people are like zoned out during the Zooms. And I've been doing this for about 10 years, that people are much more engaged and they retain information, and they just want to join a meeting if they know a puppet's going to be there. So we are kind of an injection of fun into your culture, but also along with fun information.
Yeah, and on this podcast, we talk a lot about why. So I have some theories, but could you tell me, in your experience, why having a puppet and having fun in a Zoom meeting is different, or what that magic is that's different than a regular Zoom meeting hosted by a human?
Yeah, absolutely. So just give me a sec here, because I actually was reading something today that was really I thought very profound. I mean, I have my own experience in just seeing people, being more engaged and excited. But this is from a book called The Curious Advantage. And let's see here. Hold on, I got to find the exact quote. It says, humor and surprise also play significant roles in stimulating curiosity and enhancing learning. When you encounter something unexpected or amusing, it captures your attention, leading to better memory retention and a deeper understanding of the material. This element of surprise, often found in jokes or novel situations like puppets, like me, can make learning more engaging and effective.
I completely agree. I've seen that research too, and I think it's what we call a pattern interrupt, right? That when you're just going through your day and you're going from one Zoom call to another, and nothing is that new or novel or explained, or it all just kind of fits the pattern of what your normal day looks like. It can be boring and repetitive, and you don't have to think too hard. But when a puppet shows up on your podcast or your Zoom call, your brain has to reset a little bit and say, I have to deal with this situation in a new way. I need to wake up and I need to consciously pay attention, and I have to learn new skills and new language and new things to deal with this situation, because it's not something I can do before. You know, when somebody asks you, hey, how's your day going? You say, fine, you know, thanks for asking, or whatever your standard answer to that question is. But when a puppet shows up and asks you, it's a little bit of a different situation. You have to be prepared.
There's two other things too. One is I have like 4 facial expressions, right? So yeah. I can kind of be a little afraid or such, but
yeah.
There's less cognitive load, right? When people are looking at other people during meetings, they're trying to interpret, even if they're not consciously doing this, the brain behind the scenes is interpreting what those facial expressions mean. You know, from a social psychology perspective, we are using that information to create an identity. I don't want to get too deep into it, but, you know, with puppets, it's just a reflection. And so people can just take it in without it contributing to more Zoom fatigue. It's like almost like a hot tub for your Zoom.
Yeah, and you said another thing. So I think there is some of that, but there's also a little bit more processing. Like I know that I am trying to really not notice that we're both wearing black T-shirts with a logo in the middle, and
crap,
and not comparing myself to a blue puppet with with ginger hair. So there is an interesting sort of dynamic where it can be non-threatening, but it can also be a little threatening, and people feel like that there's something unusual, right? Have you noticed a difference between puppets and humans, that you can say different things, but also maybe that other people have sort of shy reactions? They don't know how to take it.
Yeah. So look, every maybe 1 in 1,000 or 10,000 people is going to be like, puppet. But we're not clowns, you know, there's none of that associated trauma. Most people are like, oh, a puppet, so funny, you know. And we have 3 other puppets on the team right now. We do different shows, and people just love it. And I think it's centuries old, this practice, and we're a reflection. And in a lot of ways, we can discuss things in a safer way, right? So I've had this happen where sometimes things are unsaid at a company, because the background, and my counterpart will get more into this, is that we work with someone at the company to get information so that we can do a bespoke show, especially if it's like an award show that talks to specific employees. And they're excited. They're like, oh yeah, I did that this quarter. Sweet. And then here comes a little information about like from their personal background or the professional background. And that person who's getting the attention on them is like, whoa, how did that puppet know that? But another thing we can do is in interviews, we can determine some things that are not being said at the company, right? Things that are kind of maybe diminishing from the culture. Maybe there's too many meetings, and that's a problem that I'm learning. So I would go back to the leadership and say, hey, I wrote a few jokes to address that issue. Here's the script. They'll review it, and then we'll go back in a subsequent show, and maybe I'll softly address that issue, and then it can be resolved. You know, we create fluency around things that are stuck in the culture.
And I'm wondering specifically with the services that you offer, I thought learning and development is interesting. What is a puppet's role in creating an online course, new hire training, or any type of compliance training that a company might have to do?
So a lot of it is just, you know, we're kind of a glorified content delivery system, if you want to, and we're fuzzy. And anything that you create for your company, we can deliver, you know, and I add a layer of comedy to it and make it more digestible and etc. But it's essentially their content. But then my partner here, my co-founder, David Mizne, he worked for over a decade for a SaaS company doing basically helping with managing employees. And so he's a subject matter expert in these types of things. And so he also has his own material that he can write and deliver around certain things, like trainings on management or how to do a meeting effectively, etc. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll talk to David here in a second because I want to meet your co-founder as well. But my last question for you, I guess, is I could imagine that in some trainings, like I don't know, diversity training or sexual harassment training and stuff, that there would be some things that a puppet could do that maybe a person couldn't, or there's some ways you could talk about skin color when it's blue versus somebody else, a human speaking from a particular point of view. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it can be kind of charged, right? Everyone wants to have kind of more diverse representation, right? And it can be charged when the person talking about DEI is, not from a diverse background or a group. And, all of our puppets are different colored. And so there's a way in which we do that, but it's kind of in a light and playful way. We understand that this is a very important topic and we address it with care. But also it can help with the absorption of the information during those particular meetings. Mm-hmm.
I love it. All right, I think it's time to pull David up on stage. So we'll do that and talk more about him. But Little Ginger, thanks for being on the show. Hopefully you can come back at the end and play a game here with me. Maybe we'll do some survey says questions. Sound good?
I would love that. See you soon.
See you there. David, welcome to the show. David Mizne is the human behind Culture Puppet. So I wanted to get to know you a little bit better and talk about your journey in creating it. Have you always been playful and worked with puppets, or did you have I think Little Ginger actually mentioned you had like a corporate day job working for companies and stuff as well. Tell us a little bit about this journey and how Culture Puppets came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show. I was kind of in the wings there as Little Ginger took over. I've always been kind of class clown kind of kid, and I performed stand-up comedy for years. And then in 2014, I was working for a company called 15Five, and they're like performance management software. Now they've like pivoted to do more of like a whole HR suite, but I was gifted a puppet from a family friend, and I put Little Ginger on my hand. It's actually, he's the second Little Ginger.
Oh yeah.
He's not supposed to know that, but I put him on my hand and his voice popped up and I just started animating him and started taking him to work, either in person or virtual, to meetings and doing all kinds of fun things. And the company then was very small, a handful of people, but it scaled up to hundreds of people, and they would come in and know Little Ginger. I had my own emoji for him and on Slack and things. And sometimes on people's first meetings ever at the company, Little Ginger would pop up and do share the finances and stuff like that. So, and I did talent shows, and I even used him to roll out new initiatives that we did, like for our own podcast. And I just got more and more fluency with him over those 10 years. And then I started doing it for other companies, and I performed in other countries. I've performed at Burning Man and just been working with him. And I noticed that there's this uncanny ability that he has, or I have, to really light up a room in person or virtually. So.
That is that's awesome, and I love the story of it evolving. Some of the things that are really the most meaningful, I think we piece together over time. But I heard you kind of say that you started with stand-up comedy and things. So tell me about that. If we go all the way back, how did you get started with that? And as a kid, did you always want to be a stand-up comedian and stuff? How did that happen?
I was always one of those kids who did performances when the grandparents came to town. We scripted, me and my sister, we put on outfits, and
we called it creative nerdery. We would go back in the room, like find, toys or instruments or parents' clothes or something, and then come out and perform shows. Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah. So similar, it sounds like, doing that as a kid, and kind of had the bug. And finally, when I turned 30, I invited a bunch of friends. They had these things. It was like, bring 10 people and you can get a spot on the stage. It was the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, Hard Rock Cafe, and at the casino there. And I did great. And I actually won the competition. I didn't win, but I got me and a few others got selected to come back and perform comedy the next week. And if you won that, you could open for a real comic. But I was moving to California that next week. So
Amazing.
I just kind of took it with me and I performed, and I led some open mics out there in a couple places in San Francisco, and just kept doing it, but mostly for fun. It was never a career. And this is the most I've ever done with it to actually turn it into a career. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a ton of questions there, but it's kind of a combination of between my story and my brother's story. So I did I wanted to be a DJ on the radio, and I did this radio station contest called The Last DJ on the Planet, to be like the overnight DJ, the last person hired on this new radio station. And I didn't get that job. I came in second, but the person who came in third quit their job to be in the contest. So I called that radio station and I was like, hey, I heard you just lost a prize guy. Do you need somebody to fill in? And I got a job out of it and became a thing.
Sweet.
My brother did the funniest person in Kansas City contest at the comedy show here. And he used the prize money, which I think was like a flight to LA, to move to LA and start doing audience coordinating and stand-up comedy out there and stuff for a while. And has moved around to different roles, but it's been a really fun journey. And I hear that in your story, that you, as long as you're a playful person, you can bring that into any job or role. And then you can kind of find out over time how to make money at it and how to do more of it. So I imagine the first time taking Little Ginger from the company that knew it and started it outside to something else was a challenge. Was this for friends and family, or how did that happen?
Yeah, my first gigs were people who know me, so they knew that I was doing the puppetry. They may have never seen a show, but they knew that, it was, I had enough, social proof. They knew 15.5 and the people there. And I used some testimonials and some footage. And those shows went really, really well. And that was intimidating, right? A whole new group of people, they don't know me.
Yeah.
And I've had, like Little Ginger said, maybe you get one in thousands of people who's like freaked out by puppets, but it's been across the board. And, it's not just laughter. There's a couple times that I always try to end a show with something meaningful. And I had a company that I did a show for, and they were helping people with wills and trusts. And I had said, I have a personal story around that. That's actually quite, it's not funny, but it's meaningful. And they said, yeah, you can end with that. And I know my voice cracked a little. I was getting emotional behind Little Ginger there. And the feedback that came through, someone sent me a quote. It felt like an unexpected gift of love. And so it can go beyond play. It can really be profound or touching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of these play experiences are, the more I try to be sort of emotionally raw, I find that like all the feelings come out. And I think that's a lesson for adults who like try to tamp down all the feelings and be like, oh, well, I can't cry at work. Or we all kind of get those stereotypes as men of like, real men don't cry and all these things. And as you try to like avoid bad feelings even and say like, oh, well, I don't want to be hurt, or I don't want to be embarrassed and other things, you kind of tamp down all the feelings, that you don't get to pick one. And as people laugh and play and let their emotions show, that it's easier to let other emotions creep in, and you kind of have to feel all of them if you're going to feel one of them. And I think that's a common problem of adults these days. What's your take on that?
I totally agree. It's like, it would be nice if we could be like, I don't want to ever feel fear or sadness. I'm just going to lower those levers, right? And like ramp up the joy and happiness. But there is this, from a spiritual perspective, they say that you got to go into the darkness to get to the light. And as we get older, like the coping strategies start to fall away, and we just have to face these things. And, and work can be a hard place to be sometimes if you're, if it's a tricky time for the business, or it's just, let's say there's layoffs, things like that. It can be really helpful to like ramp up the laughter. And like I said, like Little Ginger said earlier, maybe you address some difficult issues with the puppetry. But I think that it's valuable to create safety for people to feel And I think every culture's got to deal that and figure that out, like exactly.
Yeah, I
what
kind
that
of think
looks
of it like an EKG machine or like an earthquake meter. Is like you got to have ups and downs. You can't like have highs without a lows. If there's a high, there's going to be some sort of drop off from that, right? So it's got to go up and down. And the more you move between the two, the more fun and interesting life you're having. If you flatline, that means you're dead, right?
Yeah,
That means
totally.
You're like, and you might be dead at 40 and buried at 80 from a heart attack or something, but you don't want to live that life either. Like I think the point is not to avoid the ups and downs, is to live as much as possible and be able to move between the two. Like I think once you realize that you can go to a dark place and come out of it, and you can go to a happy place and come down without freaking out, that's when you really learn the emotional kind of resilience to cope with life. Really.
I have two small kids. One's turning 7, the other's turning 4, and we're those kind of modern parents who read and like luckily have like access to information, and so much is going into that these days around. There's this woman, Dr. Becky, and she just did an interview with Lewis Howes and taught. My wife sent it to me. My wife sends me a lot of these. Like, it's not important for them to be happy all the time. It's important to create resilience and like create space for all the feelings, the whole spectrum. I think what we're seeing is we didn't have that when we were kids. Like, I don't know exactly how old you are, but my generation, it was sometimes shut up, stop crying from parents who didn't know how to be with, and my parents were good people and they took care of me, but it was just a different time.
And that's just the culture at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I think we're creating now is more resilient adults in these generations who are coming up, but I think it's never too late. And, it's interesting. You're giving me pause about thinking about this more as I take the puppets into workplaces, like the emotional experiences people have and kind of, taking them through a journey maybe of everything in a show. Yeah.
I had a couple more questions about puppets and then we'll wrap up and play a game. But were you into puppets as a kid? It sounds like it kind of just fell into your lap as the medium, but have you studied puppetry or got into it, or is this all like come after Little Ginger? What I have is
I attribute it to really poor eyesight, that I have really, really good hearing. You do the hearing tests.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, I don't miss any. And I mean, I'm sure that will shift, but I can also hear accents. Like if I hear somebody from England, I can tell what part of England they're from, and then I can mimic it. And so I do a lot of different accents, and like I have a puppet who's French and one who's German, and it's kind of like something that glows in the dark. I have to listen to it. My accents will be better if I listen to it beforehand. It kind of charges me up, and then I can do a better German accent or French accent. And so that piece I had a talent with, and so doing the voices, I've always kind of not trained, but it's a natural thing. And I've just cultivated by doing it over the years, like leaving people funny voice messages and, doing answering machines. Remember answering machines? I should do like funny recordings for that.
I relate to that so much. Again, I did as well. I think we took similar paths and backgrounds. I related to mirroring and matching, that I could kind of hear famous people or see other people do impressions is usually where I kind of go, oh, that's what that is. And I just sort of naturally mirror and match people's language and tone and energy. So I have to be really careful to surround myself with playful people, because if I am around toxic people, I'll mirror and match and soak up that energy and stuff as well, and their language. So I'm not really great with accents. That's funny. It's more like celebrity impressions, but I used to love voicemail messages, and I do the morning announcements and stuff, and do the weather in different voices and celebrity impersonations. And Pee Wee Herman was my favorite back in the day.
That was a fun one to do.
More like Christopher Walken and other people that just have really funny, unique voices that I pick up on. And I've never done
can
full.
I put you on the spot to do a Christopher Walken right now? Are you comfortable with that?
Well, of course. And once you start talking about it, it becomes really weird. But sometimes it goes to John Travolta. It's like so weird.
Oh, it's close, yeah.
And they're close, and but Christopher Walken's my favorite. And then if I get into it or I practice a lot, I can keep it for longer. But I can't keep characters like yours. I end up resolving to myself. So I try to do it in short things and short bits. But yeah, it's really funny and fun to do for me. So I love that. And I'll have to try puppets. I do puppetry for my kids. So that was going to be my last question for you, which is I don't have kids, but the kids in my life, like my nieces and nephews, I think it's really funny. They tend to just gravitate to it more. So we've already talked about the kind of power of it for adults, but do you use puppetry at home? Do your kids love it, or do they go, "Oh, that's Dad doing his thing again," and it's lost the magic? Or how do you see puppets for kids?
They love it. It's funny because my nephew called today, and I was preparing for this. My sister called me and with my nephew on there on a video chat, and so I had the puppet in my hand, and so I did some for him. And he's almost 2. With very young kids, it's mixed bag. Sometimes it does freak them out, and because they don't understand.
It's still magic to them, right?
Yeah,
they still
have no
see
concept.
the character.
But my kids love it. The only thing is, if I'm doing puppets all day, I don't necessarily want to come upstairs from the studio and like do a puppet show for my kids. So they get it less frequently than they used to before it was like a gig for me. But they love it, and I do it.
That is one of the downsides of playing for a living, though, that I think is important to highlight on this podcast, is that like sometimes when you turn your passion into your job, like then it's not your passion. You don't want to do it anymore, but you get fulfilled in the day job in different ways. So that's an interesting downside.
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes. Well, I know a lot of it's also working on your business and doing puppet shows just to sell puppet shows, and it can turn into a grind. But whenever I get the feedback and I can read the chats on a Zoom, or especially if it's in person, and the laughter, it feeds me. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get little Ginger back on the line and we'll wrap up here. Are you ready to play a game?
Ready to go. Let's do this.
We surveyed 100 humans and we asked them a question. You're looking for one of the top 5 answers that they said. If you get 2 out of 3 right, you win. Sound good?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, little Ginger. We asked 100 people to name something that is inconsiderate to do in parking lots.
Oh, park too close to someone else. I hate that. And then I ding them.
Oh,
they ding
parking
me.
too close. Door dings. Number 4. Congratulations. Parking 2 spots.
Oh man, those people, special place in hell for those folks.
The handicap spot are also.
Ooh.
Name something kids are told to take turns using.
Kids are told take turns. I know I do this all the time, and I'm drawing a blank. Is time running out?
No, you got plenty of time, but we asked 100 people to name something that kids have to take turns using. What do you think they said?
Favorite toy?
Toys? Number 1 answer, 67 points there. The bathroom, using the phone, that's a big one these days. Bicycles and a swing. Also in the top ones. That was a good question there. All right. Last one. We're going to go back to adult humans here. Name something adults take lessons in. What do adults need to take lessons for?
I would say adults do pick up hobbies like music, like musical guitar, something like that.
Music. There you go. Number 3. You win. You got all 3 right. Number 1, computers, technology, parenting lessons, and exercises or swimming lessons round out the top 5 there. Congratulations, little Ginger. You are one of life's winners, which means you get a free 30-second commercial here for Culture Puppets. How can we help you, or how can you help us? Take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Culture Puppets is an amazing opportunity to inject some fun into your meetings or perhaps your learning and development at your company. We do puppetry as a service. We have we can join for monthly calls, and once a month it will be your puppet of record, and we'll join a meeting and just interject a little bit of fun as you share the most important updatings for your team, or we can do newsletters, or coming up here, we have our holiday parties, virtual holiday parties. Bring a puppet on board to do an award show or to roast your founder, culturepuppets.com. See you soon.
You nailed it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Little Ginger. And David as well was on the show. Had a great time. You can find them at culturepuppets.com. I love the idea of situations where you're already trying to have fun, a company party, something like that. I hosted virtual game shows. It would be great to have Little Ginger participate in your team building activities, but also really boring stuff. If you just need to jazz up a financial presentation here at the end of the year, the annual report and numbers, I feel like it would be a lot more fun to have a puppet read out the reports and explain the charts and graphs than your CFO. No offense to CFOs out there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm way better.
Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. Go out there and have some fun. Don't be afraid to play for a living. If you want to find out your playful personality, go to playfulhumans.com/quiz. Check that out and look for the Playful Humans book coming soon here in the fourth quarter. And share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it or would appreciate it. Don't forget to check out the YouTube version. If you were just listening to the podcast, Little Ginger is a lot more fun on video, dancing right now. We'll see you next time. Go play, everybody.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sun.